The Oklahoma City Thunder are playing at a level rarely seen in recent NBA history, and they're potentially revolutionizing some key concepts in basketball. Not only are they firmly leading the Western Conference with a 44-10 record, on pace to register the 15th best season in history by winning percentage, but they are doing so with an innovative style of play and some really interesting tactical principles. In fact, Mark Daigneault's team currently has the second-best net rating in history, the result of the league's sixth-best offense and the best defense by a significant margin. This achievement is not merely the result of having players with strong defensive instincts and long arms, which certainly helps in being the league's best team for deflections this season, but also of a well-structured defensive system that works seamlessly across all areas of the court. This is a defense that seems to have no weaknesses, something rarely seen at this level. But the offense is also built on interesting concepts, such as the extensive use of drives to the basket, especially thanks to players like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams, and the high usage of pick and rolls. In this video, we will therefore explore all the tactical aspects that make the Oklahoma City Thunder the team that might have broken the NBA. Let's start by analyzing OKC's offense and the plays from Coach Daigneault's playbook. But before we dive in, if you love detailed breakdowns and in-depth basketball analysis, I highly recommend following me on IG, where I share original and exclusive content for those who aren't satisfied with superficial takes on the game. You can find the link to my profile in the description. Thanks to everyone who decides to follow me. Now back to the Thunder's offense. I want to start with the type of play you'll see most often when watching OKC games: the ghost screen. A simple yet effective play they use is called 11 out, where 11 is Isaiah Joe's number. He simply sets a ghost screen for SGA and pops out of the perimeter. The defenders typically don't know how to guard this. Communicating in this situation is really tough because of both Shai and Joe's gravities. That's why this is one of the go-to actions even after timeouts. But they use ghost screens to start games too. Here you can see J-Dub slipping and receiving the ball. He already has a slight advantage on Coffee, who is a little late because of the ghost action. So he now plays a get action on an empty side of the floor with Holmgren. Since Coffee is late, Zubac has to help on Williams, so he can hit Chet on the short roll. Same play to start the game here. Jalen Williams slips, plays the get action, but Holmgren fakes the handoff. Here's another play from OKC's ghost set. It's called Spider, and it challenges the defense's communication with 3 consecutive ghost screens. Jeng sets the first one and relocates to the corner, Caruso sets the second one and gets ready to set a hammer screen on Westbrook, and Joe sets the same screen we've seen with the 11-out action. This creates a miscommunication with 2 Nuggets players closing out on Joe, while Jeng has an open 3. Here you see a variation of the same spider play. The Thunder also frequently use the roll and replace, also known as Spain leak. In this type of play, in addition to the screener and the ball handler present in any classic pick-and-roll action, there is a third player positioned in the paint, ready to pop out to the arc once the screen is used. Compared to the traditional pick and roll, this offers an additional option on the perimeter and makes it more challenging for the defense to provide help at the rim. This play can help us understand why. Jalen Williams is the ball handler, Aaron Wiggins is the roll man, and Isaiah Joe is the replacer. So J-Dub and Wiggs play the pick and roll, while Joe sprints out, putting Dunn in a tough spot. Dunn's help forced Batum to rotate on Joe, and that means Zubac must help on Wiggins. So Holmgren is open in the corner. Batum tries to close him out, but Chet gets past him, triggering the help once again and finding Wiggins in the dunker spot. Look at how Shai's gravity removes Derrick Jones Jr. from the paint, leaving Holmgren free to roll. Another weapon in Daigneault's arsenal is his horns set. In this video, we'll see 4 of this plays, starting from this one called Horns Flare. You can see the classic horns formation here. A ball handler at the top of the key, 2 players on the wings, and 2 players in the corners. So Shai utilizes Chet's screen while Wiggins sets a flare screen for his center to create the advantage ultimately capitalized by the forward. This play is called Horns Flex. The reason is simple. It starts with the usual horns alignment and it develops with a flex screen for J-Dub. Once he gets the ball, he can play a dynamic empty side pick and roll with Chet. I personally love this ATO. It's called Horns Curl. Everyone expects the ball handler to utilize Chet's screen as in the Horns Flare play, but he hands it off to Williams, while Holmgren curls off Dort screened. This way he has an open path to the basket and he can finish at the rim. And the last play of this set is called Horns Flare Fire and has 2 decoy actions. In the first one, Dort sets a ghost screen for Joe and comes off J. Will's actual screen. While in the second one, Joe hands it off to Hayward for him to come off another J. Will screen. Maxey relaxes because he thinks Joe won't be involved in the play anymore, but the shooter ultimately comes off a pin-down screen. We've seen a lot of flare screens so far, but the way OKC utilizes this type of screen the most is in transition. Holmgren usually trails on the play, so the player who's closer to him can set a flare screen to cut his defender off and give the big man space to either shoot from behind the arc or attack the paint. This simple play is particularly effective because Chet is often guarded by centers, who typically can't navigate screens that well. A key aspect of the Thunder's offense is undoubtedly the involvement of their big men in their offensive plays, especially in the early stages of them. They are not used solely as screeners but do have important playmaking tasks, since they often handle the ball and orchestrate the play from outside the perimeter. This aspect showcases players like Isaiah Hartenstein and Jalen Williams, as they possess excellent passing skills, especially when it comes to serving their teammates' cuts and threading the needle with precise passes. The fact that the Thunder centers are often at the top of the key forces the opposing bigs to step out of the paint and weaken the rim protection. That's why these cuts are so effective. Additionally, having centers capable of making the right reads is crucial when defenses decide to blitz Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams, as they act as short rollers and can capitalize on the numerical advantage created by the defense's aggressive choices. This may not seem like an important aspect, but it definitely is. Blitzing the opposing superstar out of the pick and rolls is something a lot of teams do in the playoffs. I must give credit to Sam Presti for building this team thinking about this underrated aspects too, particularly when he signed Hartenstein with a 3-year contract last summer. And now let's analyze some after-timeout plays designed by the Thunder coaching staff. Let's start with some Miami actions. They occur when the ball handler on the wing hands it off to the player coming from the corner. That player then receives a ball screen from the big at the top of the key. Here you see Shai as the wing ball handler, J-Dub as the player coming from the corner, and Chet as the screening big. Now that you saw how it usually develops, you can understand why this ATO worked. Kenrich Williams fakes the handoff to go towards Shai for the usual handoff, but he cuts backdoor instead to counter KD's aggressive defense. They've utilized it even when they had no big men and Caruso was the center. Caruso can't have a big man's roll gravity though. That's why it's more effective when Holmgren or Hartenstein or even both are playing. And again, you can find easy counters when the defense is too aggressive. Another element you'll often find in the Thunder ATOs is the stagger screen. So when one player comes off 2 consecutive screens. Just like in the Miami action, there are counters for the aggressive defenses here too. Here, for example, the stagger screen is used as a decoy. Everybody expects Micic to use the double screen set by Wallace and Jang. Even J. Will is looking at that direction. But the real action comes from the opposite side of the court. The same play can be seen here. And you can find stagger screens even in the Thunder Horn set. But my favorite stagger action is this one. Jang, instead of coming off the screens, stops right after Joe and sets what's called a circle screen for him. This particular screen always causes a lot of troubles for the defense, since the defenders can't be perfectly positioned, so they often act instinctively. That's why they tend to mess up the coverage. Then there are specific plays tailored on the characteristics of some players. Isaiah Joe has some plays called for him, like this one, which is a skip action taken from Dan Hurley's UConn playbook and recently implemented by Redick too. After Kenny's screen, Shai makes a skip pass to the weak side, where J. Will hands it off to Joe. He plays pistol actions too, like this one where he comes off a pin-down screen. This one is brilliant. It's called fake flex, and you're about to see why. Look at Joe setting a flex screen and even signaling it with his left hand. Let's freeze the play here and see what's going on. On the strong side, the defenders are busy on what they think is the main action. On the weak side, they expect Dort to come off Joe's screen, and Doncic is even telling PJ Washington to switch. But Joe fakes the screen, so the defense can't react on time and he's free to use Chet's pin down. But there are some plays designed for Wiggins too. Against switching defenses, they use a Horns play with Wiggs as a back screener, so he can seal the defender behind his back and get to the paint. Or this one, where after screening for J-Dub, he sets a screen for SGA, but slips it and gets to the basket. Now let's dive into OKC's defense, which is the cornerstone of a team known for its versatility and relentless effort. As mentioned earlier in the video, much of the credit for the Thunder's exceptional defensive season goes to players like Luguentz Dort, Cason Wallace, Chet Holmgren, Alex Caruso, and Kenrich Williams. However, the system itself, designed to maximize their strengths and those of their teammates, who are also really solid defenders, deserves equal praise. Let's start with this fact. The Thunder don't have a clear weak link in their defense that opponents can exploit. In fact, if we look at the top 16 players in the league by defensive rating, 10 of them play for OKC. To find the entire roster of Sam Presti's team, you only need to go down to the 32nd spot. We're talking about a defense that ranks among the best in NBA history in terms of statistics. This means it's nearly impossible to force mismatches against the Thunder, which significantly complicates the plans of any team facing them, especially in a playoff series. And this also means this team can make peel switches easily. A peel switch occurs when a defender is beaten on dribble penetration, and the nearest help defender switches onto the ball, while the beaten defender peels off and switches to another player. Here you see Dort beaten on the closeout, so J-Dub peel switches on Murray, while Dort gets Gordon, which was Williams' assignment. This way, the Thunder defense has nullified the advantage the Nuggets created. They use it to improve the quality of the defenders on single matchups too. Joe is a good enough defender to stay in front of Doncic, but he sees Dort coming to help, so he peel switches to have a better defender on the Slovenian. It helps the rim protection too. Instead of letting Jalen Williams contest Porzingis' shot, Hartenstein does so, while J-Dub gets Horford. Peel switching effectively is something every modern NBA defense should do, and the Thunder always do it with perfect timing. Another key principle that bolsters Oklahoma City Thunder's defensive half-court is always having a player ready to help near the rim. With big men like Holmgren or Hartenstein on the court, their primary responsibility is to protect the paint, even if it means leaving their assigned man. This strategy works effectively because OKC is a team that excels at rotating. You can see in these clips how the Thunder bigs aren't playing in a zone coverage, and they're not even roaming. They play a classic man-to-man defense with the possibility to leave their matchup to help in the paint. We can say that this system relies on their players' IQ and ability to read the play. But the reasons why OKC is so good at protecting the paint don't stop with their big men. In fact, players like Jalen Williams and Luguentz Dort have the athleticism, the wingspan, and the defensive instincts to be great helpers as well. Just like with their bigs, they're allowed to help on rim shots when they're in a good position to do so. This becomes particularly evident when they're the low man on pick and rolls. This play explains the concept well. Draymond Green plays an empty side inverted pick and roll with Curry, something pretty common in the Warriors' offense. Caruso goes over, but Wallace can't leave Steph, so J-Dub, who's the low man, has to help. Dylan Jones has to rotate on Hield in the corner, so Wiggins cuts to put pressure on the rim, but there he finds Williams to block his attempt. Not only helps, but also blitzes, stunts, and double teams in general are highly encouraged in this system. When you have so many players that can defend at a top level, rotate this well and communicate perfectly. Playing aggressively tends to lead to the great results the Thunder are achieving this season. In this game against the Celtics, OKC showed why this type of defense works for them. Hartenstein forces Brown to go to his weak left hand as instructed by the scouting report, And as soon as he loses his dribble, Dort comes to double. So JB passes it to the open Porzingis, but J-Dub closes out on him while Dort recovers. So now you see that White's open, but Shai is in a good position for closing the gap to the corner, while Hartenstein can get Holiday and protect the paint. This results in a contested three-pointer by White. But that was not the only example from this game. Here Tatum utilizes Hauser as a screener because he wants to post Joe up. Dort reads the situation and sits in the gap, ready to double-team as soon as Tatum turns his back to the basket. While the Canadian does that, Wiggins steps up and puts himself in a good position to rotate either on Hauser or Pritchard. So the double-team comes, and Tatum throws it to Hauser. Wiggins rotates on him, while J-Will sprints to the corner and gives Shai the time to come to protect the rim. Another thing OKC is great at is pre-rotating. Look at how Wiggins and Williams have already rotated before the pick and roll. Same here for J-Dub as the low man. And look at how SGA anticipates the play and pre-rotates on the roll man. And the last aspect I want to focus on is how good these players are at navigating screens. This characteristic is typical of top-level perimeter defenders like Marcus Smart and Jrue Holiday, but there are many players on this team who are elite at it. Dort is one of the best in the league. Kenrich Williams is an underrated screen navigator, but Caruso, Wallace, and Wiggins can fight between screens well too. Look at how Dort wants to stay on Curry to bother his shot here. Trying to screen away a defender is the easiest way to get rid of him and force a weaker defender to match up against you. A lot of teams try to do that, especially when Dort is on their best scorer, but he's so good at getting past screens that this strategy often doesn't work. And this is another key aspect that is going to make a huge impact on the floor. Players like Tatum, Doncic, and Harden have entire sections of game plans designed on forcing certain matchups with top-of-the-key screens. For some people, the Oklahoma City Thunder are the clear favorites to win the Western Conference and go to the NBA Finals. For others, they're too young and inexperienced to make a deep run in the playoffs. I'd like to know your opinions about it. Which teams have a chance to beat them? Are they going to win the finals? Let me know in the comments. This was all you needed to know about the Thunder. If you want to support this channel, you can subscribe to it and like this video. I also remind you that you can find my IG page's link in the description. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.